Hello and welcome back to another watch video from OnlyVintageWatches.com. This is a special request from a customer who sent me a beautiful vintage Seiko Chronograph 7a38-7000 to restore. The watch had some issues, but it was basically fully working and only needed some spare parts and a bit of TLC. So the customer agreed to send over also another watch from which I could get the spare parts I needed. What you're now seeing is me picking up the best parts from both watches after cleaning in order to assemble the best possible watch movement. These are, for example, the rotostators. This is the first pair. Installing them is quite easy after you choose the best one. Now I'm choosing the second pair, but before doing that I noticed some stains. This is normal after cleaning. I use a little bit of Rodico to get the stains out of the parts. As I said, now I'm choosing the second pair of rotostators. There you go. Now I'm picking the minute wheel, sorry. And this part I need to look to them in the microscope. So you saw that I just moved the head of the microscope, which has an embedded light, so I can inspect the parts to their smallest detail. According to the Seiko technical manual, this part should be oiled before assembly, and now I'm just flipping it over and using the main plate as a part holder just to do that. Sorry if my hands get in the way sometimes of the camera, but with the video setup that I have, this is basically inevitable. There you go, applying with an oiler, which has the finest tip possible. I am putting a little bit of oil on the minute wheel. Flipping it over and installing it onto the main plate. That's the time for the center wheel and pinion. I am inspecting again the best looking one. Again, using the main plate as the part holder. It makes it easier for me just to inspect the part and oil it since it's already under the microscope. Flipping it, and in the main plate it goes after a final inspection. There you go. Checking that it meshes with the minute wheel. I did notice a little bit of a stain on the center wheel and pinion, so I'm just removing it with a little bit of, with the tip of the pegwood, sorry. Now I'm choosing the setting wheel spacer. This is made out of plastic. It is very hard and undurable, yet it can show signs of wear and tear sometimes due to defect or bad lubrication, or even in the watch cleaning machine. So I'm just choosing the best looking one and installing it on the main plate. As you see, it's not perfectly centered as one would expect for two reasons. First is that there is the battery hole on the left side, on the top left side if you see it, and secondly because well, it needs to fix on some poles on the main plate, so, and cover the minute wheel and the center wheel and pinion at the same time, just to hold them in place. It's kind of a bridge. It's not really a spacer, it's kind of a bridge for the minute wheel, basically. What I'm doing off camera, sorry if you don't see it, is that I am greasing the stem with the crown. There you go, the last tips of grease, and installing it. If you notice, I will put it into the clutch wheel into the the stem into the clutch wheel, and then install everything to the main plate. But there's a part missing, which is the date selector wheel. This is because the 7a38, sorry, it's a little bit hard to do this, to say this name correctly in English fast. The 38 has a date and day wheel, but the technical manual doesn't include the steps to install or disassemble these parts. What you have to do basically, the 738 manual doesn't have all this that you saw up to this moment. It's not included. So I'm using the 7828 manual, which is the previous model, just to show this part and to do it correctly and to check the oiling chart and everything. but the 7828 doesn't have a date selector. So following the previous model manual, I just completely forgot to install the date selector wheel. Actually, it's not a really big problem because you can do so later, and this is exactly what I did, and you will see it later on in the video. So now I am choosing the best yoke. This is basically the set assembly. The keyless works, if you will, or part of it. And it's quite a flimsy part, and I don't want to damage it with my tweezers, so I'm not holding it very tight, and this is why it keeps on falling from my tweezers. But after I chose the best looking part, which by the way was the original part, the first one that I took, which is this one, I just go on and install it. This has to be installed on top of the setting wheel spacer, the plastic part. And that's a little bit tricky because the spring in the yoke is under tension, and it is usually willing very, very easily to fly away. So to fix it down onto the movement, you have to hold it with a peg boot, which I'm doing now, and then just put the spring in place and hope it doesn't fly away, which it didn't, luckily, this time. I'm just checking with the microscope if everything is correct. And it's clean. Just adding a little bit of grease where the yoke was touching the stem, and now I'm placing correctly the yoke on top of the stem, just to check the movement. You go a little bit of additional grease. Sorry, additional grease. And as you saw, the yoke just sprung out of position, so I need to place it back with the pegboard and the tweezers. And I'm checking its functionality. Seems to work okay. So holding the yoke with the pegboard and just pushing and rotating the crown and the stem, just to see that the spring works correctly. That's the time of the Saturn lever. This one looks good as it is. The other one was quite worn out. The first one that I picked was of the donor movement, so I'm trying to clean the satin lever as best as I can with the Rodico from the stains of the cleaning fluid. It's a very small part, so it's a little bit tricky, and you don't want to hold it too tight with the tweezers, otherwise you will damage it. As I said, this is the original one, so after checking that everything is now okay, as it should be, I am greasing the yoke on the part where it should contact the satin lever, so to guarantee a smooth operation. A little bit more grease, since I missed a spot there. Now the quantity of grease is very important. It doesn't have to be too much, and it doesn't have to be too little. Even if you see me applying more times the grease, I am every single time I'm applying very little quantity of grease and just spreading it out, and you saw that the satin lever just sprung off and landed on the bench table because the yoke just decided just to not accept any more manipulation and sprung off as well. As I said, it's very finicky to install these parts, especially if you do it under magnification of the microscope and if you are also making a video out of it. There you go. Satin lever installed, and I just want to check if it moves correctly. Now this part, this is the changeover switch lever. This part is what makes really the watch behave as it should when you pull out the crown 1 or 2 clicks, because it has a tip that touches directly the circuit board or PCB, electronic circuit as you wish. So it's directly connected through 2 pins to the satin lever, so when you pull out the crown, the protruding pin just slides under the PCB and touches some electrical pads, and according to its position the watch will behave differently. It's very clever. This is also a very flimsy part, and I've seen a lot of watches with this switch lever with the protruding part damaged or bent down or even just plain missing because the watchmaker that has service then just was careless. And this is the satin lever spring. It is the plate that acts as a spring for the satin lever and also holds down the yoke in place. So this is the first screw that goes in the main plate, onto the main plate, should I say. Also here, a little bit of grease. This is not oil, but it's grease. Then this is gonna be metal to metal rubbing. Just gently screwing down the screw and then tightening it so that everything works correctly. And now putting the spring part of this plate lever in place so that it engages with the switch lever. Sorry, with the satin lever. And now I need to test everything out, if it works well or not. So I'm replacing the main plate on the holder just to free up the crown so I can turn it and pull it and push it as I please. And there you have it, a smooth operation of the keyless works. And this basically concludes this first part. I will divide this video into separate parts, so not to keep you annoying with my voice for 1.5 hours. And thanks for watching.